The Shed, August 24th, 1936. The sun was just coming up as I made my way to Miss Sadie's. I cut over the back fence and marched straight to the shed, knowing it would still be locked up tight. But I held the skeleton key. It had never been mentioned in Miss Sadie's stories, but in my mind it had worked its own way. I wondered before what skeletons this key was hiding. Well, there couldn't be any more skeletons than Miss Sadie's shed. The key fit into the door nice and easy, and with hardly a tug the door swung wide open. The shed was there waiting for me to come in, waiting to reveal what had been hidden and festering for so long. It was a normal garden shed with pruning shears, buckets, watering cans, and the accompanying assortment of cobwebs, dead bugs, and dust. But there was also 10 or 12 jugs. This was where Jinx had stashed the extra elixir under lock and key, and he'd kept the key. Up high on a shelf there was a box. I took it down and lifted the lid. I pulled out pictures, grade cards, newspaper clippings, childhood drawings, and school papers, all mementos of a boy named Ned. I took my time absorbing the things Miss Sadie couldn't bring herself to tell me. I walked into the house, and in the kitchen I fetched a bottle of rubbing alcohol and some cotton balls. Then I found a sharp knife and heated it on the cook stove. Miss Sadie was sitting on the front porch, rocking, waiting for me. "Are you ready?" I said. "I am ready." Kneeling beside her, I held the hot blade to her wound and pierced it, letting all the pain flow out. I don't recall if Miss Sadie told the rest of the story to me as I cleaned her wound, or if I told it to her through what I'd pieced together on my own. It doesn't matter. All I know is that her story flowed in and out of mine, and you might say I divined the rest. The Diviner. It is a story of a young Hungarian woman who comes from a family of diviners, and she has a son. In her young life, she has seen much pain and suffering. She wants a better life for her son. She will go to America. Her story is like thousands of others, and yet her story is just that, her story. The woman and her son set off on a long, great journey. They crossed the Atlantic Ocean on a big steamer and landed at Ellis Island. There, with the huddled masses, she and her son are herded through cattle pens to be examined by doctors for sickness or disease. In the din of different languages echoing in the room, she hears a voice behind her speaking words she understands. It is Gitsi Vita, a girl from her own village. They had not seen each other in years, and here they end up together in America, or almost America. A doctor looks at their papers, then at the boy. "Your name is Benedict," the doctor says. The boy smiles, hearing his name. He holds out 4 fingers to tell the doctor how old he is. The doctor pats him on the head. "A healthy one," he says, even though the boy does not understand. Then the doctor examines the mother. He checks her eyes. One is red and milky. He writes a T on her arm for trachoma, an eye infection. It is very contagious, so she will not be permitted to stay. She must return to the boat and sail back. This cannot be. To have come all this way, it is just a cold in her eye, nothing serious. But her words are not understood, and her son, she cannot take him back on the boat. He is allowed to stay, so he does not get a return ticket, and she does not have enough money to buy one. Izzy says, "I will keep him with me. I have a place to stay in New York. I will give you the address. When your eye is better, you will come back." The young woman hugs her son, kisses him again, and through her tears says to be a good boy and she will come back. "But how will you find me?" he asks. She takes a locket from her neck. Inside is a compass. "See," she says to him, "this needle always points north. But in here, she says, pointing to her heart, I have a compass that always points to you. No matter where you are, I will find you. She puts the locket around his neck, and Gitsy holds his hand while they wave goodbye. The woman takes the long trip back to Europe. Her eye gets better, and she works very hard to make enough money to take the boat ride again. This time, she is allowed into America and goes to the place where Gitsy is a seamstress for a rich family. But the maid who answers the door shakes her hand. Gitsy got very sick. She was in a hospital for 3 weeks and died. But little Benedict, the boy who was with her, the maid shrugs. She doesn't know where they took him. For a whole year, the young woman walks the streets of New York. She knocks on doors of churches, orphanages, hospitals. No one can help her. No one has seen her son, until one day she knocks on the door of the orphanage of the Good Shepherd. Yes, they had a boy there. His name was Benedict, but he was put on an orphan train and sent west. For many more months, the woman's search continues, and she goes further west into America. She draws attention. People frown at her thick accent. They raise their eyebrows at her dark skin. She tells them she is from a family of diviners, of people who read the signs of the land and water, but they do not understand. She is shunned and called a gypsy and a fortune teller. She asks about a boy, and they hold their children behind them. Then she finds a little town in southeast Kansas called Manifest, and she finds her son. But now little Benedict is 7 years old. He has been adopted by Hadley Gillen, who owns a hardware store. The man loves the boy, and the boy is happy. The child speaks their language as if he does not remember the one he heard as a baby. If she reveals herself as his mother, she will bring shame on him. They will shun him the way she has been shunned. So what does she do? She does what a diviner does. She watches, she waits, she loves. As people come to her for their palms to be read or their fortunes told, she puts on a show. She dresses the part. But what she gives them instead is the truths she observes and knows about them. To the young wife who comes in to grieve over not being able to have a child, Miss Sadie gives herbs to calm her fears and open her womb. When the aging grandmother who grows forgetful and fears she is losing her mind comes to her, Miss Shady, the diviner, comforts her, pats her hand, and tells her that the things she does remember, things from long ago, are as real as what happened yesterday. But mostly she watches, she waits, she loves. Only one woman in the town takes note. Seeing her pain, recognizes the look of a mother watching her son, even from a distance. The nun, who is also a midwife. She promises to keep the woman's secret, but she provides her with grade cards, childhood drawings, school papers. She does her best to do what a midwife does. She helps the woman realize in some small way her motherhood. She helps the mother keep the promise she made in the peekaboo song she once sang to her son. Where is little boy hiding? Where did little boy go? Mama is always watching you. Where you are, Mama will always know. But the woman, the mother, she watches, she waits, she loves. And she bears the weight of all that love. She bears the loss of her son to war. She bears the story of Manifest, when everyone else is crushed by it, by the loss, the pain. When no one else can bear to remember, she is the keeper of the story, until someone who needs to hear it comes along. When will it be time to make it? When it will be time to make it known, to manifest. That's what a diviner does. Beginnings, middles, ends. August 30th, 1936. Over the following days, Letty Ruth Ann and I took long walks. They listened as I told them the whole story about Jinx, Ned, and Miss Sadie, and Gideon, and me. We talked about other things too, about how the town seemed to have come back to life. All the Remember When stories in the paper had folks talking about the way Manifest used to be, and all the fine memories they had, and how people used to take care of each other. There were tears, too, but they seemed to be healing tears. We talked about how Ivan DeVore, the postmaster, had finally worked up the nerve to ask Bellomy-Ezell to the upcoming second annual homecoming celebration, to be held 18 years after the first one. She said she knew he'd been sending her those anonymous notes all those years, but it wasn't a woman's place to do the asking. And the women were piecing things together. Another quilt, only this time, instead of a victory quilt, it was a friendship quilt. And they asked Miss Sadie to make the center square. After all, it wasn't her fault that a young boy's first and only welding job had been to make a gate with her family name, Redesian, at the top. Those letters that, when poorly welded and a little warped, looked more like perdition. Miss Dawkins at the drugstore gave Lady Ruth Ann and me $1 apiece for our idea of offering free ice-cold water to folks traveling by on the highway. Once we put up that sign that read, "Come to Manifest for free ice-cold water. It won't cure your ills, but it'll quench your thirst," the cars started rolling in. Most folks would drink their free ice water and shop a bit before moving on. The strangest thing was how we found out that Mr. Underhill wasn't the rattler after all. Oh, he was the one who had written the note all right, and he had tacked it to our tree. He had seen us watching him in the cemetery that first day when he was measuring out a burial plot. Turned out he had been cheating folks for years, shorting their coffins and burial plots by 6 inches to a foot while charging them full price. But when he heard we were on a spy hunt, he got real worried. He had been kind of a spy after all. He thought we'd found out that he was the one who fed Devlin and Burton information during the fake quarantine. The past week, Hattie Mae had walked into the Better Days funeral parlor and said, "Mr. Underhill, you've got some explaining to do." He must have been on pins and needles for a long time, worried that somebody'd find out, because he broke down right then and there and confessed the whole thing. He was a bit put out when Hattie Mae said she'd only come in to ask him where he'd gotten off calling her a hack reporter, and had he or had he not started charging by the letter for engraving tombstones after the incident involving Emancipation Proclamation Nesh. So the rattler was still at large. Remember when entries kept coming in? One surprise entry read, "Remember the waterlogged victory quilt? Most people don't know that it was dried and returned to Miss Eldora Larkin with a handwritten apology from Ned Gillen and his friend Jinx. They both signed their names in the middle square right over President Wilson's washed-out signature. It was a lovely gesture, and that quilt has been on my divan all these years. But I'm passing it along to a young lady in the care of Shady Howard, who has helped us remember who we are and where we all come from. Pearl Ann Larkin, Hamilton." But it was Heck Carlson who won the Remember When contest. His entry read, "Remember when Manifest seemed to be a place too far away to ever get back to? A place too good to be real? A place one was proud to call home? Remember? For those of us who made it home, let us always remember, and for those of us who didn't come home, let us never forget."